The remaster for Lollipop Chainsaw was released today, and a lot of gamers have noticed that IGN just outright refuses to do a review of this new version of the game. We got this tweet right here from Learning the Law. IGN is unwilling to review Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP, probably because it might trigger some of the they/them staff. Instead, they published an article announcing the launch that reminded the audience that they gave the game a 5 out of 10, which is unfair. How are they still in business? And this is a screen cap from that article that they released. I believe this is actually a week or two old, but here's what it has to say about Lollipop Chainsaw. Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP is a remake of the original Lollipop Chainsaw, which follows high school cheerleader and zombie hunter descendant Julia Starling as she fights through the apocalypse with her boyfriend's severed head at her side. RePOP is a definitive version of the game which leaves the story unchanged, with the focus on quality of life improvements and additional gameplay content. Dragami Game CEO Yoshimi Yasada said in June, the game picked up a cult following, but in our 5 out of 10 review, IGN said Lollipop Chainsaw doesn't even attempt to differentiate itself from the genre, and most of what it does try new in the realm of its character and writing ultimately ends up taking away from an incredibly on-the-paper action game. And I think it is kind of unfair that they're not willing to revisit it, because it does say that they're making all these quality of life improvements and other things like that to the game. So I think that changes it enough. It's not like just having a port of the game to a different console. I can understand if IGN doesn't want to review it then, but by saying you're not going to review it because you didn't like the last version when it came out, what was it, 12 years ago, I believe, 2012 was when it came out, especially when you consider that IGN has been known to review remasters of games. I found this one right here just at the top of my head. IGN decided to review The Last of Us Remastered and gave this one a 10 out of 10, just like the original game. And they didn't do anything different to this one. It was just a port to a new console, maybe just beef up the graphics a little bit. But for the most part, it was still very much the same game. But they still gave this one another review. But for Lollipop Chainsaw, when they've actually made some quality of life improvements on it, they're not actually willing to like revisit it and see how it holds up now, because I got the original review pulled up right here. You can see they gave it a 5 out of 10. And just for reference, for some recent game examples, you got Dustborn. No, that's a 7 out of 10. So better than Lollipop Chainsaw, according to IGN. Concord, the game that lasted all but 2 weeks before Sony decided to pull it in disgrace. That's a 7 out of 10. Star Wars Outlaws, a game that's pretty much tanking the stock for Ubisoft. They thought that was a 7 out of 10, but when it comes to Lollipop Chainsaw, this game, nope, not so much. It's a 5 out of 10. And a lot of people are pointing to this statement from the CEO of the company as to why they're probably not going to review it. We've finally been able to re-release Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP uncensored. I'm proud that we have been able to revive Lollipop Chainsaw, a cult game that had been lying dormant due to copyright issues, as a modern action game. The core content of RePOP is an original mode that faithfully recreates the original version scenarios, script, gore, expressions, cutscenes, direction, character design, motion, comic style, character introduction, images, costumes, achievements, etc. On the other hand, for those game users who are not so keen on gore, we have also prepared the RePOP mode, which expresses damage effects in pop art style. So we hope you will give Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP a try. And I think this is what IGN ultimately has against this type of game right now, is because of the fact that it's kind of bucking the trends when it comes to recent games about how they've been, I don't know, a lot of people have been pointing out, it seems like they're making deliberate efforts in order to try to uglify female characters in video games. One of the most recent examples of this is Star Wars Outlaws, and a lot of people were saying like, oh no, that's not happening, until after the game just started tanking. Then we get this article from The Gamer with the headline, okay, let's talk about Kay Voss's face, and some of the key takeaways from this article that it has listed here. The chuds are right. Kay Voss does look weird. It's not for the reasons that they tell you, though. It could be because of technical issues and limitations, or just because she was supposed to look like that. Whatever it is, it's not because of a conspiracy against gamers to make women in video games more ugly. Not everything is a conspiracy against you. Sometimes games just look weird. Stop sending people abuse on the internet. I don't think there's really any abuse towards individuals. It's more just people calling out these game developers for this. And to talk about the limitations, if that's the case, then why does it only seem to affect many Western games? There's this image I found right here. The West hates women. So just some examples of the actress for the role versus what she looks like in game. And you can see in Western games, they do tend to make them look a lot more uglier compared to games coming out of the East. And that's one of the things when it comes to Lollipop Chainsaw is that's a game from the East. And yeah, we're not allowed to have attractive looking female characters in games anymore. They have to look ugly. And this just isn't pushing the agenda, what they're trying to do now. And I think a lot of this is, at least the impression I get when I look at stuff like this, it almost seems like they're trying to change what it looks like to be a female because they all tend to look more masculine. And it does kind of give the impression they're trying to say like, well, masculine features can also be feminine too, just like these people also claim women can have a penis as well, even though literally that's not the case. But it does look like that's kind of the route they're going with. And since Lollipop Chainsaw isn't trying to appease them, like I'm imagining if Julia in the re-release of it looked more masculine, had a squared jawed, more squared off torso or whatever, they kind of deflated some of her, let's say, assets for it, then maybe IGN would be like, oh, this is a way better version and an improvement on the original one. Obviously, we don't know that's going to be the case because they haven't done that, but I'm assuming that's kind of the route that they'd be going with this. But as it stands right now, no, IGN is kind of upset about this. But even if it is one of those situations where they're like, well, we already reviewed it in the past, there's not enough different on this game in order to justify another review, just kind of take a look at this one. It says it was written by Mitch Dyer. Just look at him for a second here. Latest from Mitch Dyer. This was from back in 2017. Videos 2017. Articles 2016. So you get the idea. He hasn't been working with them for quite some time. So I think this would actually be a good opportunity for IGN to have someone else at IGN review the game and give kind of a different perspective on it. And at the very least, they can examine some of the new features and quality of life improvements that they have for this game to see if it actually does hold up and justify the re-release, because that's something interesting you can have in a review. But I'm guessing IGN really doesn't want to do that. I think they're just kind of have their agenda that they have to push, and they didn't pay them the designated amount to get the mandatory at least 7 out of 10 score. So this is what they get as a result of it. IGN is just trying to push it under the rug and hope that no one notices. But one thing, I looked at the Steam charts. This is when I pulled up here. Let me just refresh it, see what it says. Okay, so right now 815 active players, more than what we saw with whatchamacallit, Dustborn or Concord. So as of right now, this game is doing better than that. Do I expect this to be like a huge hit or anything like that? No, it's probably not, but it seems to be one of those games that a lot of people are interested in actually playing because the original did have a bit of a cult following surrounding it. So I'm thinking a lot of those people will probably pick this up and just to see how this holds up compared to that one. But if you have played the original and played this one, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Is it a remarkably improvement on the original, or is it just kind of like, yeah, that's fine, I'm okay with that? Comment below, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And if you can, click that like button and share the video out there because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.